It is remarkable what some of the young people have been able to accomplish. By attending to their remarkable narratives of resistance, transformation, and hope, especially stories coming from working poor, working class young people, who all too often are invisible to the dominant church. Maybe we can get some insights on how to go about revitalizing ministry with youth in our own congregations. Through exploring how certain groups of excluded, marginalized young people are practicing a spirituality of resistance against empire, maybe we could learn how to better deploy our own theological riches in ways that better capture the imagination and commitment of our young people, and at the same time revitalize our own congregations. Spirituality lived on the underside and margins of society may hold important correctives for how we live our spirituality in the mainstream, especially if what the Apostle Paul suggests is true. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in the world. Things that are not to reduce to nothing, things that are. Off the radar screen, there's a rapidly emerging movement around the country called youth community organizing. And I know that you recognize the phrase faith-based community organizing. This is both like and unlike that tradition. Youth community organizing weaves and integrates diverse traditions in order to address holistic needs of young people and their communities, and to effect individual transformation, institutional transformation, and social, societal transformation. Well, what is youth community organizing, and how does it work? This is an innovative youth development and social justice strategy that equips young people with skills they need to alter unequal power relations in their wider community, to identify and reduce specific injustices that they themselves are living under, to effect meaningful personal, institutional, and social change in their own specific schools, neighborhoods, and local communities. Youth community organizing teaches young people how to analyze the forces of empire that adversely affect their families and their neighborhoods, and then how to craft and carry out concrete strategies that challenge and change those forces. And this is what sets this youth ministry off from many others. While in many youth groups, I'm sure there's a lot of talk about social problems, often when the discussion's over, it's over, and there's no real training of young people in how they themselves can gather together and actually effect some significant change in their own daily lived experience. The difference here is there's actual training and equipping in the skills. It's an action, reflection, then discussion model of what has been learned through the action reflection. YCO particularly appeals to the most marginalized young people, including poor youth, youth of color, immigrant youth, gay youth, juvenile offenders, and school dropouts. This movement affirms that the persons and the communities most adversely affected by a social problem are the very ones who are best poised to organize for systemic change, with the rest of us as their allies and stakeholders with them. And it's usually the other way around. We cook up the ministry and then get other people to support it. In this movement, young people craft the ministry and then look for allies across lines of race and class. Now, just a word about positive youth development that's here in the first sentence. In the mid-'80s, there arose a movement among people who work with young people in nonprofits, 4-H clubs, public schools, and so forth, called positive youth development. It was a reaction against the deficit view of young people that was coming out of so-called juvenile prevention programs that viewed young people as potential juveniles rather than as potential creators of social justice. And so positive youth development started by affirming the leadership abilities and capacities of young people. So this tradition very intentionally tries to combine the historic tradition of community organizing with all the research and literature and support materials coming out of the tradition of positive youth development. Youth community organizing promotes positive youth development through fostering a sense of trust, safety, mutual support, loyalty, and so on among members of a larger peer group. The focus on the harsh realities that young people face expands from looking toward their own individual well-being, their own spiritual, emotional, and mental health, to looking out into the wider community and at the well-being of diverse other people and the well-being of the wider community. Youth community organizing promotes civic participation and a participatory democracy. If you recall, several years ago, there was a big fuss stirred up by Robert Putnam's book, Bowling Alone. There was this debate, are people dropping out of contributing to the common good and just bowling alone? Have we lost the ability to work on leagues and in other organizations with people? There was a big controversy over that. This tradition of YCO provides a training ground for present and future leaders of our society and its various institutions. It contributes to the ongoing health of our democracy through an emphasis on civic engagement and on concrete, creative, visionary transformation of neighborhoods and communities. Now, if we want to sustain and to grow a progressive social justice movement in our country, we've got to constantly be identifying young people and capturing their imagination when they're young and making decisions about what their vocational path will be, what they will major in college, and whether they'll even go to college. This tradition of YCO is very deliberate about that and trying to build a seamless pipeline and bring in young people early and then see them through not only after they graduate from high school but on through into college and even afterwards. YCO is developing a critical pipeline of visionary, thoughtful, strategic, creative leaders for the progressive movement to draw on. We, who call ourselves progressive Christians, need to be as intentional about creating a pipeline and drawing in young people and giving them support as they decide on their vocational paths. YCO effects significant change in public policies and practices. Groups around the country have carried out successful campaigns in public schools, the juvenile justice system, victories against environmental racism, women's issues, healthcare, community development, native rights, public transportation. One of the most common things that these groups do is get the city to provide free bus passes for kids from low-income